Welcome to How to Wrap with Fabric, the Art of Furoshiki with Maggie Shepherd and the Westerville Public Library. And so first of all, I want to give you a little lowdown as to what furoshiki is. So furoshiki is a Japanese word, and here are some of the definitions. So in its most basic sense, it is wrapping things with cloth, like either for gifting, for carrying, anything like that. It literally translates to bath spread, because when you had the public bathhouses, people would go and wrap, the things that they brought with them, either changes of clothing, food, anything like that, in the cloth to take back with them. And then the name came in the 16 to 1800s, again, when people were bundling things. And here is some of its depiction in art. So this shows up everywhere. Now, throughout most of history, fabric is expensive and a luxury good. So if you had extra cloth that you could just wrap things in, you were rich. This was a rich person endeavor for the majority of Japanese history. And then when there started to be surplus, then it started moving down, the societal food chain, as it were. But you can see backpacks, it was a common thing for gifts, even just market going. So if you didn't have a basket, it didn't matter because you had essentially clothes. So this continued up through the early 1900s, and it was in practice all over the world. Although at this point it started becoming more of a poorer, lower class of the society for hauling vegetables, or school kids especially would carry their books, whereas the more well-to-do were starting to buy the luxury goods, handbags, things like that from the West. Okay, but furoshiki is definitely making a comeback, simply as not only because it's pretty, but also as a conservation effort. So clothing, and I know Maggie is going to speak on this a bit, where clothing is one of the biggest wastes that we have right now in the world. And besides it being pretty, it's also utilitarian. Think about right now, if anybody at home is wiping down their bags when you come home from the grocery store, think about, tossing your bag in the washer and being done with it. There are a couple of really great uses. But also, if you've ever had a bag that had an item that really did not fit in a bag, well, if you have a big enough piece of cloth, you can pretty much wrap anything. So on that note, I'm going to cede the screen over to Maggie.
So the reason we're here today is to really talk about why it's important to jump on this movement to wrap in reusable gift wrap for the holidays. So I'll give you some facts about the waste that occurs between Thanksgiving and New Year's and why this is definitely a mindful movement to participate in. And then we'll show you some cool in-the-moment wrapping techniques. So a fact that really struck us at Lush is that Americans spend about $7 billion each year on gift wrapping. That's crazy. And what happens because we're spending all that money on something that is generally not able to be recycled, I'll touch on that in a second, trash actually increases by 25% between Thanksgiving and New Year's. So there's so much things that are going into the landfill. And, even with our attempts to recycle, you would think that wrapping paper, because it's paper, could be recycled. So I'll just say that again, Americans spend $7 billion each year on gift wrapping, increasing the trash by 27% just between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve or New Year. Most gift wrapping is not able to be recycled because of that shiny laminated paper. So if that wrapping paper ends up in your recycling bin, it makes the entire load recyclable. So if wrapping paper is metallic, has glitter on it, or has texture to it, it's not recyclable. And even those decorative ribbon, bows, and glitter Latin holiday cards are nightmares for recycling centers. So to avoid that, is it recyclable, is it not, we recommend just wrapping in this fabric because they have so many amazing ways to be reused. I will definitely say those facts again, so for our post-recording. So what we're just trying to do is help avoid the 2.3 million pounds of wrapping, avoid that landfill each year. So my lovely assistant, Shelby, who is a nice 6 feet away from me, you're just gonna see her hands, is going to show us some popular wrapping techniques. I know that you have little tutorials as well, so feel free to follow along with us or experiment on your own. So I'm going to share the screen right now. Yes, so right now, if you want to grab a book, you can try the book wrapping technique. Or if you want to grab a journal or anything that's that nice square shape. And I think that this is in your, yep, there's a few different ones. Yes, there you go. Yep, there's a few different book techniques there. So you can just follow along. What we recommend is putting, you always want to start with the wrap with the corners pointing outward. So not having it squared to you, so point that outward. That's going to give you the most fabric to work with. That's the biggest thing when you're positioning your items, is to make sure that you've got enough fabric to work with. So Shelby's going to pull in that book, give it a nice fold, straighten out those sides. Taking those time to straighten out will really help make those lines look beautiful and neat. Folding it over and pulling them. You see how she's kind of gathering that fabric up, making it a nice sturdy way to be tied with. And then she's going to give it a nice bow. And you notice she's kind of tucking in the edges as she's going to make sure that, nothing is hanging out. And we've got that beautiful little bow right there. Definitely pull out the little fabric knots. You can kind of see I've done it too here on my scarf. Fluffing those little edges just really help give that nice wow factor with that bow. So you don't even have to worry about doing a bow. And then you can tie a little recyclable paper tag on it. We have ones at our shop that are made from, they're like the cardboard essentially, and we've got used little oh my gosh, what's that fabric called for tying it? The twine. Yes, so definitely cute, definitely rustic. So wrapping books, and that obviously makes a really great gift. Thinking about, I'm assuming that if you are thinking about wrapping mindfully, you're also going to be thinking about what mindful gifts. So books and journals make a great gift, that's going to be used and enjoyed for many years. So next we're going to show how to wrap a single round item. We've got our bath bombs here. And this kind of applies for any singular item that you want to wrap. So you notice that she's starting at the corner, and as she goes, she's pulling that fabric, really ensuring that there's no wrinkles or anything like that, and just doing a really quick kind of roll, and then hold on to that end. And then again, she's going to kind of, before she ties that bow, she's going to pinch the two corners and then go into tying that beautiful bow. And then
Maggie, is there a size that is generally recommended, like as a general fabric square size for this?
Yeah, I definitely think the bandana size is a great an easy one to use. We've got ones that are just a smidge bigger, but I can have Shelby show some with that bandana. I would say kind of like what you mentioned, essentially you can wrap anything depending on that size of fabric that you have. So the bigger of an item that you're going to wrap, the bigger cloth that you're going to need. So Shelby will show you how to wrap 2 items with those bandanas that you have at home. So this is one you start with taking those 2 corners, bringing them together. And notice how she's tucking those in and then ending with a handle. So you have kind of a couple options when you're finishing your wrapping. You can either put it into a bow or like a handle. So either one is super cute, super easy to travel with. So we've shown, grab one last, let's do the bottles. We'll show you one more way to wrap with bottles. And I know we're going a little fast. I promise it will become second nature once you kind of get the hang of it. We've been wrapping like this for probably collectively over 10 years. So like I said, it definitely use those guides. Those are the exact same things, the same tools that we use to follow along with. The bottle one is really cool. This could be if you want to, wrap shower products. I would maybe like a bottle of wine, 2 bottles of wine. And again, just start at that tip, and then what she wants to do is she's maintaining a little bit that you can't really see. She's maintaining a little bit of space between those 2 bottles. So she can kind of pinch that because she's going to end up bringing them together. So just make sure that if you're wrapping those bottles that there is a little bit of space in between. So again, she's just going to start rolling, making that fabric nice and straight as she goes, really taking your time with it, really putting all that love into what she's doing. And then here's like where the magic happens. She's going to bring them together, and you can kind of see she's kind of making them so they've got a stable base. Tucking in all those little extra pieces, giving it a nice tight. And she's going to wow us with her bow tying skills. And I think that's one thing to note. So when we're doing the bows, we're not doing an extra bow like when you tie your shoes. We're using the knot and spreading out the top as your bow. So don't worry about having to do like the bunny ears or the loops or anything like that. Your knot essentially will make your bow. And then you can see you've got those 2 bottles nicely wrapped up. So after you've wrapped all of those amazing goodies, you can, tuck in little, flowers or recyclable cards, handwritten notes, anything like that to make it really special and customized for the person that you're gifting. And then I would also recommend maybe putting in a little card that tells your gift receiver what to do with it afterwards, right? Because they haven't gone through this class, or maybe you can just send them the link. But really making sure that they are empowered to know how to repurpose it themselves, because not everybody has that creative vision to know intuitively what to do. So we have 3 suggestions that it can be a wearable item. So you can see I've got it here as a neck scarf. And for those wearable items, if you search square scarf on YouTube, it'll show you so many different ways of how to tie a square scarf. So you've got those bandanas, and those are ones that are considered those square scarf. I mean, anything that is essentially square would fall under that category. And there's lots of amazing ways for you to know how to learn how to tie those for fashion. You can also then use it as like a headscarf, to pull your hair back while you're, washing your face, makeup, or just as like a fashion accessory around your ponytail. We also are going to suggest, maybe decorative. So you could hang it on your wall as a tapestry, or you could use it as a table runner. So if you get more of like a holiday print, that's something that, you could recommend using as like a tea towel or setting up on for table decoration. And really be mindful of those fabric choices when you're looking to it. I think it's great to reuse fabric scraps that you already have. Or if you have to purchase them, think about what their life after they get wrapped is going to look like. So making sure that they're beautiful and usable. And lastly, we're going to show you now how to use them for traveling. So I'm sure as they originally were intended, you can use them for taking things to school or to work. So we generally use these to pack our lunches. So you can see Shelby's got it all straightened out. We've got those reusable containers, really being mindful. And again, stacking the items in the center really, really helps. You're kind of looking for a small surface area in the middle. So it's way easier to stack up than to stack out. So she's going to pull those corners up, loop it around. And I don't know about you, but it is really relaxing just to watch this being tied. Tucking those corners in. She's got those nice handles. And now we can go up and make that handled loop. So it's easy to carry. And they're totally washable. So after you get done with your lunch, you can even use it as a little bit of a napkin, a nice little spot to make sure that you've got a clean eating area. Super easy. The other thing that we're going to show you, kind of like the name was originally, or the name means, is using it to carry toiletries. So I would recommend, if you're using it for traveling, to get a bigger scarf. So that way you can put all your bath products in one spot. So we've got a little bit larger of a scarf here. And this is one that has a beautiful print on it. So definitely, would make a great wall hanging or, a great table runner. So Shelby's getting it spread out now. Those corners to the edges. Gonna pull out a bottle of lotion, a shower gel, and a bar soap. Anything that you want to travel, with you. These are great for putting your makeup in. So they're all in one spot. And then, because instead of like a makeup bag where everything is piled on top of itself, when you open this up, you have a really beautiful display of all your items. So they're easy to access. You're not digging through a bag. So this is one that we've got 2 handles on it, since you know it's going to be a little bit heavier with all those products in it.
Is there a fabric that you recommend we stay away from because maybe it's more slippery and the knots don't hold?
Yeah, so what we've got right here, this is our polyester essentially, but we're making it out of recycled plastic bottles. I would say the ones that have a little bit more slip are actually really nice for wearing, because they can tie a little bit. They're going to hang a little bit nicely. They don't get as wrinkly. Now, for the ones that you're wrapping things that need to be really taut, we recommend using more of those organic cottons, because they're going to have a little bit more friction when you create those knots. So you can kind of see how like the silky ones are a little bit more loose when they're wrapped. So silky, either silk or polyester, is going to be nice for smaller items when you want more of like the frilly bows. If you've got bigger items to wrap, that's when we recommend using more of those organic cottons, because they're going to have more of like I said, more friction to them. Do we want to see more wrapping? Do we want to do a wrapping together? Do we have questions? I know we just kind of flew right through there. So I'm kind of opening up and seeing what you guys would like to experience next.
Is there something that keeps, like, say I was going to put something inside something else, is there something that you would call very stable that keeps everything together? Like maybe not you're carrying it, but it's in something else?
So like if you're gonna, so you could definitely get a reusable container like for Shelby's lunch. So we've got that reusable jar that we're putting in more fragile items. You could also repurpose maybe a shipping box, and cut the top off of it. So you've got an open box, so the base is a little bit more stable. We have a couple examples from our shop that have bases to them. So you can see these have little cardboard bases. They've got a little bit more of a shape to them. These are holding some soap slices. So those are great if your items are going to be a little bit more fragile. And then we've got one that's a little bit bigger that has like a rounded cardboard box. So this one has a lot of little fragile bath items in it. So that's really great to give a little bit more of that stable base. If you're having trouble getting all your items to stack nicely because they maybe have more of an organic shape to them, I would definitely recommend grabbing like a shipping box or a cardboard box, and try to be mindful of using something that you're recycling. I think we have this conversation with our customers a lot. They'll buy our items that are already wrapped like that, and then they want it rewrapped. I think as Americans, I want to challenge our perception of what packaging needs to look like in terms of gift giving. So we don't need to be totally extravagant with the way we're wrapping and having it, 3 different layers and boxes and, buying special boxes just to be wrapped. Really think about what is the life cycle of anything that you are sharing with somebody else, especially when it comes to packaging, because 99.9% of the time, those things are just going to be tossed into the landfill, or they're going to be maybe attempted to be recycled, but a component of them are not recyclable. So then what that ends up doing is contaminating all your other items that could be recycled. Recycling is such a tricky thing, and I won't talk more about it, but I am definitely in the mindset that I would rather reduce and reuse than recycle, just with the way our facilities and our processing goes. So just remember to reduce that waste and to think of things that you can reuse. And then recycle is kind of your last thing in that way to a greener planet. So how about we can go through a really slow tutorial of using the bandana and wrapping one item. So if you're tuning in now or if you're tuning in later, grab that bandana, grab that scarf, whatever you want to try to wrap with, and we'll go through a nice slow process of getting it wrapped so that way you can build some confidence with it. So take a minute now to grab those supplies and we will wait.
Maggie, while we wait, can you share an experience of you using this in real life, like besides the lunchbox, or introducing this to somebody and they, flipped out in a good way?
Yeah, for sure. I think I use these a lot when I'm giving handmade items, and I will actually dye the scarf or the bandana with natural dyes or tie-dye or whatnot, so then that way it actually becomes part of the gift. So thinking about what else someone could use that for, I make a lot of like crystal gifts for people. So I will use this as a way for them to wrap up that item that's a little bit more fragile, so they always have somewhere safe to store it. So I think you can think about the wrap as part of the gift. So it's another item for that person to receive. I know a lot of our customers really love wearing them as scarves in their hair. I think it becomes like a keepsake essentially from that gift exchange, right? So it's a physical memento of that exchange of gift giving energy between the giver and the recipient. So I definitely think if you put a little bit of thought and care into, how does this knot wrap? How does the scarf embody the gift giver? How does it embody the gift itself? It'll really create a holistic, magical experience in that exchange. So I think people, definitely, right? There's that saying that it's not about what you give, but it's about the thought behind it. So I think this wrapping is an extension of that. So if we can look at our wrapping as another gift for the person, it just becomes an elevated experience for everybody. And then you're also saving them the hassle of like having to figure out how they're going to throw away or recycle that packaging. Have you ever been out in a restaurant doing gift exchanges and like you have this accumulation of paper trash and you just like don't know what to do with it? If you utilize this system, these fabric squares are super easy to tuck away with that gift. So I always think about it as a way to amplify what I'm giving. And I think especially if you're going the handmade route this year, what a beautiful way to include the packaging as part of that. If people are giving away baked goods, I think, grabbing a tea towel to do the wrapping in, you can really theme it. I do a lot of for baby showers. I get a swaddling blanket and I wrap everything in their blanket. So, think about that. It doesn't have to be just like a random piece of fabric. It can be part of the gift itself. How fun would it be if you've got someone that you're giving like little stuffed animals to, or something that's like really cozy? You could get a small blanket to use as the wrap. So I think it's just being creative and thinking about the fabric as part of the gift, and people don't really care that it's not a surprise. They don't need their things covered up. It's about that energetic exchange between you and that other person. It's not about the big reveal that packaging kind of alludes to. So I think it's just a really special moment to give something that you've thought about every step of the way. And that's gifting is my love language. So I definitely really think that it's important to show thought throughout every step of that gift that we're giving. And if it's not your love language, think about how it's impacting the earth. So did that answer your question?
It did. I do have a question though. Speaking of the baby blanket, so if it is not going to hold, like flat out not going to hold, how would you recommend securing it? Like, can you cheat and use the safety pin, or is there a way that you recommend just making sure that knot stays for at least a little while?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. That's where you can grab twine, or you could even take scrap fabric and just like do like a really secure bow with that. If you've got like extra fabric, like a strip of fabric laying around, I will shred up a lot of like the bandanas or other fabric when I'm making things and just keep them as like reusable ribbons. So that's another way to do that. But right, if you have to safety pin it, that's okay. I think the attempt is way more important than like if it's perfect. So now that everyone has hopefully grabbed that one item that they want to practice, Shelby's got the scarf laid out. Which wrap are you going to walk us through, Shelby? We're going to do the watermelon carry. So that is going to be on the back of your paper or front, depending on. Just going to walk you through that one. And this one's great for all sizes of items. We were looking at this one, and it's definitely good for items that need a little bit more stabilization. So put that item that you're wrapping right directly in the center. You're going to gather up those corners. And you can see now how that cotton is definitely having some friction. So that's really going to make sure that those knots stay in place. And don't be afraid to tie and retie if it's not perfect. And like once you get the hang of wrapping down, what a great moment to just sit in energetic intention as you wrap that item for the person and just, send them some love, some well wishes for whatever the occasion is. Really take that moment to, as you're folding that fabric, say their name, say what you love about them, and really, put those intentions into that wrap so they just can immediately feel the love and the energy that you've put into that. Look at how cool that is. And it's really, I love that knot on the front because it really creates that security for whatever is inside of there. So that might be a really great tie for those bigger items, those heavier items. So let's just do one more. So you can either untie what you have created, or you can grab another item and another scarf. I'm gonna do the bottled one. We'll take you through that bottled one. I think this one is really great, especially if you're giving canned goods, wine, bottled products. I think those are really something that don't fit traditional packaging very well. So I know I'm always like, how do I wrap this round thing? It doesn't really fit in a box. There's all those wine bags and things like that, or those very specific, but those are definitely hard to reuse. So making sure that you've got that beautiful space in between those two bottles. Just bringing those up, making sure they're tight and secure. You can just tuck that little guy in there. No one's the wiser. And the other cool thing about organic cotton fabric is it holds scent really nicely. So if you want to spritz any of your gifts with some essential oils, maybe some lavender for invoking relaxation, you could do, some spicy cinnamon to represent the warmth of the holidays, whatever you feel called to. But that's another way to kind of create that sensory experience for your gift recipient. And you can kind of see how Shelby is now showing us the different ways that you can finish it, either with a handle or a bow. And remember that knot is your bow, and just take the time to fluff out the little end pieces so you get that really beautiful wow factor. I think when we're tying those scarves for our customers, that bow is really when we see that wow factor from them, and they're just always so surprised that that can be created so quickly, so easily, and have such impact. So let's open up for any more questions. And we're happy to do more of these slower tutorials too. I just want to be mindful of everybody's time. Your time is valuable this morning.
Can I ask you to lay out the things you've done so far in the screenshot so we can have kind of a review or overview of what you've done so far?
Absolutely. Shelby, will you mind laying everything out that we've already wrapped up? As she unties everything.
Could you go through that long object wrap?
Yeah, you want to go through the long, like a single long object?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm like looking at the illustrations, and I don't see how they get from the roll to that first twist.
Well, yep, we'll absolutely do that one. And I will be super transparent. That's not one that we have done in our shop before exactly, but I think Shelby's skilled enough that we can do that together. It looks like those get twisted. There we go. Now we have a taller bottle. So I think the bottle is like showing. Okay. Cool.
Oh, I was talking about the long object wrap, the one above that one.
Oh, the one, she wants the one above it. We'll finish this one, yeah. And then we'll do that one too. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, this is cool.
And you're always welcome to come see us at Lush at Polaris, and we'll help you wrap all your goodies. That one is super cool, Shelby. It's got 2 bows. Ooh, so there's 2 little bows on this one. So we've got the one in the front and the one that's your handle. So that one definitely looks like it would be great for those wine bottles, or anything that's like an olive oil, or anything that's a little bit of a taller bottle to wrap. So now we'll go to the one right above that. Do you want to try it with the bandana? No, we'll try this one with the bandana if that's what you're working with. Oh, I see it. Yep. So making sure that before you go to the last step, that you do pinch around the edges. That's the technique that will really help stabilize whatever you're wrapping. And you can kind of even twist it a little bit. And then bring those up. And this one we are going to double knot it. And I think that's where you can really play with the size fabric that you're using. So this bandana was perfect for that little size. Nothing, is too over the top. So if you had a bigger piece of fabric, you'd end up with a lot of extra bows. Or extra fabric on those bows. Is there any other one that we want to specifically see? Awesome. So we'll have Shelby lay out everything that we have done so far together. And like, how beautiful will all of these look under your tree with all the different fabrics that you're choosing that represent all the people that you're gifting to.
I can tell you as a practical step, if you are storing things like anywhere in cabinets or drawers or closets, and you guys know what I mean when I say clinkers, so especially if it's glass objects, metal, things like that, storing things like this is also a good way to keep it safe from elements, from insects, from just bumping against each other, even just padding for protection for the item itself.
Great tip. Any other questions?
I just noticed not everything has a knot, right? I saw one that's like a flat package, flat object wrap. It looks like it's just kind of folding it.
From what we put out or on the paper?
On the paper. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Which one?
It's on the top in the middle. On the same side as that long
object wrap. You are absolutely correct. It definitely looks like that one is just tucked in, almost like origami. I know that I've wrapped like cards like this with paper. So I would definitely say if you're going to wrap this one, to use that organic cotton. So we're looking at this one. I bet Shelby could walk us through that one really quickly.
It's also good to use if you're wrapping something and then wrapping it again. So have you guys ever gotten those multi-gift sets where like everything is wrapped? You can do the same thing with fabric. And then this way you don't have to knot it and mess up the shape of the final thing.
Absolutely. Or even this is where you could put, if you are someone who likes to use ribbon, you could do, your twine or your fabric strips to put that final decorative element on that. So we were just talking, Shelby can't hear us. We were just saying how not all of them have knots. So some of them are just tucked in like this one. I saw her look of like, how is this going to happen? I know she grabbed that organic cotton for this one because it has a little bit more of that friction. I would definitely not recommend silk for the ones that don't have an actual knot to them. That just gets tucked in the top. Right. Yep. Yep, right there. Yep, and that one you kind of tuck into itself, essentially. Yes, I liked what Jessica said. That would be perfect for multi-item gifts, especially if you're putting things like a stack of books. I'm really inspired for my gift shopping list now. Thank you, everybody. These questions are great. Keep them coming. Or if anybody has any tips that they want to share with their own experience with this type of wrapping, we definitely can just have a conversation for the last portion of this.
Just to let you know, the bandana squares that we have are 24 inches, and I think that's pretty standard. If you want smaller squares, then getting something that's handkerchief size will probably fit the smaller ones. Otherwise, table napkins, like the cloth table napkins, also tend to be the 24 inches, but man, that varies, so feel free to look around.
I know a lot of a lot of craft stores will have the like cotton, like the plain white cotton handkerchiefs and like bandana sizes that are used for like tie dyeing and things like that. So those are really great. The fabric, some of them are a little bit thinner than like traditional bandanas. So those make a really easy thing to tie with. Or linen is another beautiful fabric to use.
In places like Joann and Michael's, they'll often have bundles called quilting squares, and you'll get multiple pieces of fabric for around like $5. I know people were using those to make their own masks at home.
Yep.
All right. Does anybody have any experiences with this that they'd like to share? Like, have you tried this before? Did it work? Not work? Because remember, horror stories are also welcome, because then that just prepares us for when something goes wrong.
I would just say, I would just say if you're having trouble, maybe either a bigger piece of fabric or a smaller piece of fabric. And if you can really make sure, like sometimes when we're in the shop wrapping, we have someone that has maybe like 10 loose items that we're trying to wrap, and really creating a nice pyramid shaped with those products or with what you're gifting is the best way to get more items in there. So you can kind of see Shelby's doing a really beautiful demonstration right now of making sure everything is kind of stacked up tall and in that pyramid, and that's going to help them naturally be positioned during that wrap. It's really hard if everything has they're all spread out on the bottom. They're just going to kind of like tumble on each other, and it's going to be really hard for you to wrap. So that's one of our best tips for easy wrapping. And then sometimes you do just need a bigger piece of fabric if you're not getting the bow that you want, or if there's not enough fabric on the ends. That's when you know that you need a bigger piece of fabric. Or sometimes the opposite, like if your piece of fabric is too big for the item, and it feels maybe like droopy a little bit, you just need less fabric. So I think that's some of the best practice tips to share is really being fluid and flexible with the size of the fabric that you're using, really making sure that you're stacking those items nice and neatly in that pyramid shaped, bigger items on the bottom, smaller up to the top. And so you see, this is a great example of, it doesn't have a huge bow, but it definitely still is super adorable. Everything.
Can you tell us how you train people at the store in this?
Yeah, so essentially just like what we're doing here. So those cards are a really great way to practice. Essentially, because it's really about you're figuring out your hand movement. And that's why I was trying to kind of highlight some of those subtle things that Shelby was doing just from experience that might not be so obvious from reading the card. So that's essentially what we do. So Shelby, will you show the little cards that we use in the shop? So Lush has given us a really brilliant stack of cards that'll have a picture of the different finished product. And then on the back has like the steps, very similar. So you're having a little bit of a glare here. There we go. So essentially just showing exactly like the paper that you all have at home to practice with. There are also a lot of tutorials on YouTube if you're somebody that likes to see it in the moment, kind of like what we've done here today. So that's how we kind of go to the ones that are a little bit, if we're struggling with it, we want to go and see, okay, what are those little subtle movements that we're noticing that somebody else did to have that success? So yeah, it's really just giving them the tools, which are going to be those note cards, giving them the space to practice, and then just really repetitive wrapping is what makes our not wrapped stars. And I think it's really, anybody can do this. I truly believe that. And I feel like I've seen, everyone that comes in, that works for us can do these knot wraps. It's not a specialty skill. It's just one that takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of confidence to make a few mistakes to get those perfect wraps. Because you will definitely, sometimes you'll look at the instructions and you're like, this doesn't make sense. Really follow each movement independently before you go on to the next one. Because a lot of times there'll be a step that you maybe rushed through or forgotten. But I think it definitely helps to have a partner with you. So we always do training at Lush. We're very hands-on from 6 feet away right now to really help guide each other through those moments where we get stuck. So if you've got a friend or a family member, practice with them, because they might notice something in those instructions that you didn't notice that was really subtle that made the difference. Maybe there's a twist or a flip that got missed. And I will say we all end up having a signature wrap. So you'll find one that you really like doing and you do it well. And then that kind of just becomes your go-to signature wrap. And it's really interesting. Since we all bring our lunch in, we can tell whose lunch it is generally based on how they've tied it. So don't be afraid to create your own signature wrap. Follow those instructions, but then play around with it and do what feels right for you. Let this technique be an extension of who you are, of your energy, and of your love and care for that object that you're gifting that other person.
Well, thank you. That was amazing. I found several things that I am definitely going to put into practice. Does anyone have any other questions or suggestions, experiences, anything like that? Okay.
As we wrap up, I know I was having some mic issues, so I'll just kind of restate some of those facts about why this movement is really important to try this year. And, definitely jump on this reusable packaging bandwagon. Just a reminder, Americans spend about $7 billion each year on gift wrapping, which most of it ends up in the trash. And they actually see a 25% increase in waste between Thanksgiving and New Year's, because most wrapping paper actually isn't recyclable. If it's shiny, laminated, textured, or has glitter on it, it's not recyclable. And if that piece of wrapping paper ends up in your recycling bin, it can contaminate the entire load, making that entire load unrecyclable. Especially those decorative ribbons, bows, any glitter-laden holiday cards, those are definitely nightmares for the recycling centers. So be mindful, even if you think it is recyclable, definitely practice reusing and reducing first. Because each year, gift wrapping alone contributes to 2.3 million pounds of waste in those landfills. So make sure that this year you are practicing that mindfulness and you're really embodying the art of gift giving. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention today. It was so lovely to be here and show off what we love so much. My hand model, Shelby, is waving, saying thank you as well.
This was really great. Thank you. Very good job. And even though this is on Zoom, I got to tell you that room smells fabulous because they're using the products. I went in and I'm like, oh, this is nice. So yes, we need smell-o-vision sooner than later.
Absolutely, especially right now.
Yeah. All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming. If you know anybody who would like to learn this as well, again, this video will be available soon. I also have about 15 other fabric squares, as well as the kit that you picked up. So if you were interested, go ahead and tell other people. They can request it and pick it up through the reserve room, while supplies last. So Maggie, thank you. And thank you to your helper. We only saw our hands, but good job. All right. Thank you everyone for coming. everybody, and have a good day.